H-E-N.
It's HeadphonesNeil!
And welcome back to HeadphonesNeil Reviews. I'm your host, as always, HeadphonesNeil, bringing you my latest set of reviews and gameplay updates and all that usual good stuff. So, with that being said, I only have a couple of TV show reviews to do, or actually one TV show update and a movie review, and then I'll jump into my update for Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. So, I did have a chance to watch the episode of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, translated Frontier Justice. So now we're trying to move the story forward a little bit. Daryl and Carol are working on their escape. We have not the dispute, but the issues that they're having with the town that they're staying at. They're learning more about the different factions that are in this new community, who they're with and against, what they're for and against, and all of that stuff. So basically, it's making The Walking Dead Wild West kind of show, so I'm still all in on the season, so definitely worth watching. It starts off a little bit slow, but it does pick up along the way into the end of the episode, so it is with the overarching theme of Daryl and Carol wanting to fix the boat to get back home to America, but now they have to deal with the Spanish frontier. So all in all, interesting episode, and it's continuing to progress the season nicely, so I can't wait to see what they end up doing and how they finish off this particular season. Otherwise, the Fantastic Four First Steps is now available on streaming. I didn't see it on Disney Plus as of yet, but you can rent or buy it if you so choose. So I did finally end up watching it, and overall it was very well done. They have a very 60s and 70s feel to the movie. They did follow the trend of what they did in the Superman movie by not showing their creation, but they did explain it in some introductory text. So it's one of those things where it feels like they're taking the theme of, well, we don't necessarily need to show an origin story yet again. We know what their team is all about, why they're fantastic. We'll show what their powers are, but we don't necessarily need to show how they got them again. So I thought that's okay. I'm neither here nor there with that sort of stuff. It would be nice to have seen it, just because it's in the current iteration of it, but I also understand the whole flip side of they don't necessarily need to show that origin all over again. We're to that point where we're in a universe where we know that people have powers and abilities and don't need to show it all that much, but they can visit it, or it leaves them open also to being able to visit it down the road if they so choose. And then with that, we have the idea behind we have the introduction of Galactus, the World Eater. I did like that they spent enough time on him wanting to take over the Earth, introducing the idea that the child of Reed, and now I'm forgetting his wife's name, but the Richards' kid is a potential successor to Galactus. But they also threw him down the road as far as dealing with him by making the movie about returning him through a portal across the universe or galaxy or whatever, so they don't have to deal with him now, but it leaves them open to things like introducing other Marvel properties like potentially the X-Men to deal with him once they have all those movies down the road. So on the face of it, it does feel like they potentially have a throughput for not necessarily, or like a toned down version of the multiverse where they're using portals to travel across the galaxy and the universes, but they've also introduced a villain for this phase of the MCU, so it's taking us back to phase 1 with Thanos, but now in the form of Galactus. So by being able to introduce the Fantastic Four, it lets them introduce the mutants and X-Men and all of those characters and those franchises. I'm not too well versed on all the other properties that are related to it, but I want to say that they could even bring the Skrull. I want to say whoever the bad guys were from the last season, and then tie stuff all together with that and various other cultures and all of that stuff into this particular phase to deal with Galactus. Even if you have mini bosses along the way, so along the lines of Loki and all the other bad guys from the various films from the first phase of the MCU, so they can do that here as well, and then make Galactus the final bad guy for this phase. So long story short, very well done. They did have the stinger for Dr. Doom or Mr. Doom or whatever, played by Robert Downey Jr., and then they're going to have him return in Avengers. Wow, I'm really drawing a blank today on stuff, but Doomsday, I guess. So we'll see how that all factors in and all of that stuff. So needless to say, Fantastic Four first steps are a good first step into this phase and proceeding into this phase. So it is very reminiscent of Phase 1 MCU. So it does feel like they're going back to their roots and following that template to go through this phase and introduce some new characters for them from their properties. So with that being said, as far as the Knights of the Old Republic gameplay goes, we're done with Terrace and Dantooine. So Terrace is probably the longest section of the game. I kind of remember Manon being long, but that's probably only because the underwater portion is a bit slow, but that's really a small portion of it. You have to go back and forth a lot, but that's a later problem versus a now problem. So Terrace is probably the longest level just because you're introducing the game and the elements and navigation. You have a lot of tiers to go through. You're building up the base level of your character. And then Dantooine is kind of the sequel, aftershock, aftermath of Terrace. So you become a Jedi, you do have to deal with what happened. You learn that you have force powers if you're following the non-modded version of the game. If you use the Jedi from the start mod, it's kind of like it's more along the lines of understanding that you have force powers and continuing to decide if you want to go down the Jedi or Sith route. But regardless, Terrace is an interesting planet because they do introduce the current state of the universe. So you have the end of the Mandalorian Wars. You're now dealing with the Jedi versus the Sith, basically the Jedi Civil War. And then the localized issues as far as, the upper city versus lower city, rich versus poor. And then the Undercity with the Rackle disease, Undercity bases, they introduce the idea of swoop racing. So a lot of different concepts in the world, and then they expand out on all of that stuff throughout the rest of the game. Dantooine has a more localized conflict between the Sandrels and the Metales. But then also kind of like Basta likes to go on about as far as a place of calming and spiritual healing and all of that stuff. But along the lines of also, you can either redeem or kill Juhani to go down the Jedi or Sith route. And then you deal with the Mandalorians. This part was okay. You don't really get any dark side or light side points, but you do help the guy in the Enclave courtyard because you do want to avenge the death of his family. I do feel like one of the few things that I think that KOTOR 2 did well was the combining of the Mandalorian clans across the various planets. So it kind of takes this theme of what we see here in KOTOR 1 and expands on that so that you can have that side quest of reuniting all the clans that are on the different planets you visit, have them go back to Dixon and help Mandalore rebuild the Mandalorian culture. So if you play them in succession, it is a very good, interesting connecting thread. So I do like that they have that. Whether it's official or not, I do like that particular thread. I did skip the part about the farmers who killed the other guy who was running. Just kind of never really like it. 9 times out of 10 kind of like the Sun retrial on Manon. I always have trouble with it as far as finishing it and finding the right guy, getting the right points, and having the effect I want. So if I feel like doing it, I'll do it. But in this case, I didn't really feel like it, so I skipped it. But if you want the points or the force or the experience points at this point in the game, you can. But there is enough time in the game to get all the points that you need for each particular section. So it's actually a very small portion of the game at this point to have to do or not do. But ultimately, the end of Dantooine is getting into the ancient ruins, learning that Revan and Malik found these star maps, and it led them to an unknown end result in the form of the Star Forge. So that becomes a quest for the rest of the game. So the first half of Dantooine is dealing with leaving Terrace, escaping from the battle and all of that stuff, and having some downtime. The second half, once you cleanse the Grove of Juhani, whether you save her or don't, is to now go into the rest of the game as far as finding the rest of the star maps. So you visit the other planets in the game so that you can ultimately find the location of the Star Forge, which conveniently enough, which I don't know why I never thought about this before, is right in the middle of all the other planets. So in all the traveling back and forth that you would have done, you would have and then the way like they present the Star Forge at the end from my memory is that all the war effort of the Sith comes from the Star Forge, and it's the central focus of where all the ships are leaving from. So couldn't they triangulate or backtrack where all these ships are coming from and find it that way? So that's kind of a finicky and loose way of saying that, well, it's an easy thing that, well, we don't know where the Star Forge is, or it's potentially shielded or hidden from radar and navigation systems and stuff, but they could have backtracked or figured it out if anyone was actually paying attention. But that's neither here nor there. Basically, the second half of the Dantooine planet is to visit the ancient ruins, learn that Revan and Malik use these star maps to find the Star Forge. So now that's your overarching mission in the game. So that's that. From here, my usual go-to planet is Tatooine, because of the rest of the planets is probably the easiest, because there's not a whole lot as far as story-wise that goes on. So when you visit here, you can take care of the side quests of Bastila's mom and Mission's brother. The idea here is that you need to, once you've leveled up all your characters, you need to progress their story arcs enough to initiate their story quests. So before you leave Dantooine, talk to all your teammates, progress their stories as far as you can. Notably Bastila and Mission, so that when you leave the ship in the Dantooine spaceport, you initiate the conversation that Griff, Mission's brother, ran away with Lena to Tatooine to earn some credits, and they ended up splitting ways because Lena realized that Griff was out grifting everybody. So there's that. And then with Bastila's mom, one of her childhood friends or Bastila's mom's friend shows up, hasn't seen Bastila since she was a child, and said, wishes her well and hopes she's doing better and all that. Bastila doesn't know. And that initiates that quest on Tatooine. So once you head to Tatooine, you'll go to the Circa office to find out that Griff was kidnapped by the Sand People, and Bastila's mom is in the cantina. So the Bastila's mom side quest is essentially, if you want, you don't necessarily get light side or dark side points, but you can either make Bastila feel better by giving her the holocron of her father, or not as much as sadness, but giving Bastila's mom the holocron of her father so she can have some peace before she goes on her way. With the Sand People side quest and Griff and all that, it doesn't really matter if you go light side or dark side, because with the Sand People thing, it's more of, if you want the extra experience points, you go dark side, kill all the Sand People and side with Zerka. If you want to go the light side route, you give them the moisture evaporator so they can go into the desert. They'll promise to have fewer attacks, but because you're not killing them in the dark side way, you're not going to get those experience points aside from giving them the moisture evaporators. So it all depends on the route you want to take, but either way, you're going to find Griff in the little enclave off to the side in the Sand People, or the room to the side in the Sand People enclave. You'll rescue him. He'll try to grift you for money, even though he has no shame in asking his sister for credits, and he'll go back to the Zerka office. On the other side, you'll have the Java, or not the Java, but the Jawas, sorry, not V, but W Jawas, so you can rescue them for some points, not necessarily light side or dark side, but you get some experience points for helping them. And that's really about it. I mean, then from here you get the star map. If you do it in this order, then Calo Nord will have, earlier learned that Calo Nord will have survived the bombing on Terrace, so he'll try to take you out here. You ultimately have to defeat him to keep going, and you get his armor, so that's a definite upside. And it is upgradable, so it does become some strong armor. And then from here, the Tatooine is done. In order to, oh, and before I forget, you do need to have HK-47 in order to go the light side route in the Sand People Enclave. So you do have to buy him from that vendor that's near the exit to the Dune Sea. But in order to have enough credits for that, you can sell off all your stuff and you may have the credits, or as long as you didn't buy anything, you may be okay. But the easiest way to get some credits is to go to the swoop racing, help with, or not, regardless of if you help Nico or not, you do want to go to the swoop racing track, get all the racing bonds from the hut dude that's there. And at this point, you should have already visited Yavin Station, which I'll get to in a second. But essentially, you want to go to Yavin Station, sell off all the bonds for as much credit as possible, so you get some easy credits to buy HK-47 to go the light side route. But either way, if you, or not either way, but HK-47 in the game really only is useful for the Sand People Enclave part. For the rest of the game, he is not very useful. He's an okay droid for doing stuff, but he's not particularly strong or resilient. You don't really get to upgrade him that much unless you give him a lot of good weapons and stuff, but he's not, I don't know, I've never found that he's a particularly strong side character. So either way, so for me personally, I don't particularly use him much. So if you're going light side, you get him in his party, so you're okay either way. But if you're going dark side with the Sand People Enclave, since you're going to end up killing them anyways, you don't need the translators, so you can save your credits. You don't need to buy HK-47, and you can move on from there. So that's really the upsides and downsides about that. But I would say save your credits. Don't really waste anything on HK-47. If you go light side, you can have him in your party, but literally everyone else is a better alternative to stuff. Maybe Mission is the exclusion, because once you get off Terrace, Mission is also not very useful, because you do have T3M4 who has more technical skills than Mission, and better, and also even better computer skills, like security and repair skills, than HK-47. So either way, T3M4 is a better route to take for all your computer needs, computer security and repairs needs. So I would say T3M4 is the better route to go for all that stuff. You don't even need to use Mission for that matter, except to upgrade her story arc to with her brother and all that to get those experience points. But once you're done with Griff on Tatooine, that's pretty much it. You don't need to use her anymore for anything else. Now, as far as Yavin Station goes, you do want to start this as soon as possible in the game. So after leaving Dantooine, go to Yavin Station first, talk to the Rodian, who's going to tell you that he gets bothered by these Trandoshans, but what you want to do is you want to beat him at Pazak a whole bunch of times so he gives you discounts on his goods. The problem is that in the stock version of the game, the Pazak is heavily in favor of the game, so you're gonna probably lose a whole bunch before you win a bunch. So it's gonna take you, I think the last time I played without the mod, it took me a good 1 to 2 hours to beat him enough times to get me that discount. So that's why I use the easy Pazak mod, because it sets all the flip cards values to 0. And that gives you it makes the game that much more even, and not necessarily in your favor, because it'll still randomly give you, or give your opponent the value of 20, or you'll like randomly get a high card and you won't have enough negative cards to get back down to 20 or less. So you still have to worry about that, but for the most part, it makes the game a lot more fair and balanced. So it cuts the hour or two to beat the Rodian and Pazak a bunch of times down to maybe 20 or 30 minutes. But this is important because you want to progress the story arc to the point where after you get the last star map and beat the Trandoshans, you're going to get 2 super powered lightsaber crystals. So that is the ultimate goal. But you want to get a discount on the Rodian's equipment, so his armor and implants and all that stuff, so you're spending less credits on that stuff than you have to. If you don't spend the money to buy HK47, it becomes a little bit easier, but ultimately you do want to use the Rodian as a means of unloading all your excess inventory to get a whole bunch of easy credits so that you can buy all his equipment. And also there's a Rodian on Korriban who has a bunch of expensive equipment as well, like strength gauntlets and blasters and things like that. So you're not going to get a discount there. So that's also why it's important to have a bunch of extra credits so you can buy the equipment from him. The Zerka rep on Korriban also has some stuff. I think only 1 or 2 items, but because you don't get a discount there either, that's why selling to the Rodian on Yavin Station is the most important place to sell your stuff. I think the only stuff that you do not get a good price on is the raid plates that you get from those beasts on Tatooine. So you can only get a good price from the hunting club. I think it's an Ithorian, if I remember right, in the hunting club on Tatooine next to or in between the Zerka office and the docking bay. So you will have to go to him to sell that. And then the Gaffy sticks go to the Zerka rep. But other than that, all your other equipment, like, blasters and implants and mines and all the stuff that you don't necessarily use like me, sell it to the Rodian so you get as much money as possible to buy his equipment and the equipment on Korriban. Same thing with the Rodian who's in that lobby before you get to the Zerka office and the cantina. He has, I think, so if memory serves, so on Tatooine you're going to get Cassius Fett's armor, and I think on Korriban you can get Cassius Fett's pistol, which is supposed to be really, really high powered. So you will need some extra credits for that. So things like that you'll have to plan a little bit based on the weapons you want to get and upgrades and all that. But it's important to sell off this. That's why I'm talking about this quite a bit, that you want to sell your equipment to the Rodian to get all that stuff. And it's also important to sell your equipment to the Rodian because once you do that, you can go back to Tatooine and get Cassius Fett's armor. And if you're using use your force powers with any armor mod, then you can buy Cassius Fett's armor and get a high or a very good piece of armor to use on your own character and use that early on, so you're very much protected and you get a lot of good stats to protect yourself with. Ultimately, if you're going for a pure Jedi and you're not going to use that mod, then having Kalonor's armor and Cassius Fett's armor is good for Canderous and Karth if you're going to use them a lot as your party members. So they are very protected, less chances of them dying, they get good protection. And all of that stuff, and their armors are upgradable, so you do get to add that much more benefit to those armors regardless of who is wearing them. So with that being said, that is all for this particular episode and reviews and all of that stuff. So the next episode will be the continuing updates for Knights of the Old Republic, The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, and I'm not sure what else I'll have a chance to watch, but whatever else comes up, I'll also make sure I review that and share that as I watch it. But those will be at least the 2 things for the next episode. So you can get the gameplay episode or gameplay videos for Knights of the Old Republic on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/PatelN01. The website is HeadphonesNeil.reviews for all episodes, subscription links, and all of that good stuff. But that's all there is for this particular episode. And oh yeah, one more thing. If you are a subscriber or you want to be a subscriber to the channel and you want to support the show there, be sure to become a member so you get early access to the gameplay videos. So that goes especially right now for the Knights of the Old Republic gameplay, and also things like having the Doom 1 episode 4 Thy Flesh Consumed gameplay ahead of the public release to the channel. And also things like I'm working on another Doom gameplay series. I'm gonna start that soon, but I haven't decided how I want to do that particular release yet. So once I figure that out, then you'll also get those gameplay videos early by becoming a member on top of being a subscriber to the channel. But either way, subscription or membership to the YouTube channel is always welcome. Again, that's youtube.com/ Patel N01. But that is all for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.